My name is Dr. Kaushik Ram, and on this channel I take you on adventures with mind and body, and today I'm here with Edo. Edo is the founder of a Sound Life charity, a charity that is dedicated to helping kids with terminally ill conditions and provide support for families in hospitals. And the book that I wrote in my previous episode with Dave Powell, the proceedings from that book is going to Edo's A Sound Life charity. And I really wanted to share Edo's story as well and how this charity came about. And the challenge that I'll face in this episode is all about unlocking my voice. And this is specific to singing because I've always been told that my singing voice sucks. And I've never developed it because, again, of embarrassment and humiliation. And so I really want to address this in this episode and also address it through a modality that connects us to our hearts.
Well, I can think of the answer, but you just need to frame the question.
I love that.
Well, there was a time in my village home when the news was set to inform. Circles they grew in waves of fear, and the news became set to conform. My greatest concern's not the end in a man, it is man becoming a drone, anesthetized roboticide.
Welcome, Edo, to this channel. And
Thank you.
I remember I met you in 2012. And on that, at that stage of my life, I was on this journey of connecting with my heart, and I did that through surrender. And 4 years on, I remember getting the news of your then wife, Jo, that she had contracted bowel cancer. And within a few weeks, I think 7 weeks or so, she passed away. And I remember coming to the memorial service that you had for her. There were 500 people there. And I remember you walking on stage and sitting down and playing the mantra, Chakdambe Ma. And before you played the mantra, I was feeling grief for having someone so beautiful pass away. And then when you started singing, I was feeling an overwhelming sense of love. And so much so that in that moment I felt like I was having two conflicting emotions simultaneously. Like one was an overwhelming sense of love and the other grief. And I was feeling both these emotions with equal intensity. And now that Jo has passed away, when I think back on her, I feel nothing but love. Like, doesn't matter what memory I have of her, the moment I reflect on it, I just experience love. I'd like to know, what went through your mind when you stepped up on that stage, but also maybe before we go into that, share with me a little bit about Jo and the journey that has led to, to that point where you were at that memorial.
Sure. So I met Jo in 2008, I think it was, at a yoga retreat. She was practicing yoga at the school that I used to sing at, and I was invited to sing at the retreat in Bali. And I heard her sing and play this old Balinese flute, and I was blown away, and I had this intuition or this feeling that we'd end up traveling the world playing music together, but you don't say that to somebody who you just met. So I said, you're going to travel around the world playing music, and she thought I was nuts. Anyway, she was traveling to India to go to Mysore to do yoga, and I said, I'm heading to another place called Velo, where my guru is, a place called Sri Puram. Do you want to come? And she really felt an internal calling to come. So she was going to come just for a few days and then move on her journey. So we ended up in India together there, had this few days together, and she had a very profound experience, and we felt the connection that we had, and then I left. And then she never left that place. She never made it to Mysore. She ended up staying there for 6 months, and then we ended up living on and off there for the last, for the next 7 years. And in that time, she had arrived there as a management consultant, and she'd been through the whole,
transitioning from a corporate world to
she was in that transition. She was searching for just deeper meaning and deeper love and wisdom and all those different things through her yoga journey. And she was a musician when she was young. She'd studied flute and piano and played with the Melbourne Symphonic Youth, but then just sort of went into the corporate world and into the treadmill in a way, and just and by the time I went back to join her in India, we got engaged shortly after that, and then we started traveling around the world sharing music and then yoga and meditation, and that led to us setting up A Sound Life, the charity we co-founded. And so it was just a huge transformation. In the next 7 years, she devoted her life to music, service, and spirituality. And so, although it seemed on a physical level very tragic that, a vital, inspiring, gifted 36-year-old who's sharing all this love and joy with the world leaves just like that. And she would have had so much more to share, I'm sure, if she stayed here musically and in different ways, but it was her time to leave. And unless we surrender to a higher understanding or order, cosmic order of things, it's very hard to accept that, because then we just look at everything on a form level and just think, oh, this is not fair, or this is tragic, and all we focus on is the physical loss. But my spiritual practice and Joe's spiritual practice enabled us to face this journey in a different way. And this didn't mean that on a physical level she didn't want to stay on this earth. There was a yearning to stay, but she also had to surrender to the fact that the ailment in the body and its deterioration in a way, So watching that was really intense, watching the person you love deteriorate and go through so much pain, the vomiting, the sickness, the chemo, all of it. And I think in a way is a blessing that it was a short period, because to endure that kind of pain for a long time, and some people do, would be really, so much maybe harder, Mm-hmm. So in a way, the fact that it was short could be seen as a blessing too, mm-hmm. as a kind of mercy. But so she faced her death with so much. It was so inspiring, because she knew, and she had all these profound experiences during that time where she really came to physically realize that she wasn't her body. We theorize about consciousness, but when it's actually you and it's happening to you and you have to deal with leaving this body behind and moving on to another experience, it's very different, and
in a way it almost humanizes this spiritual experience.
Yeah, totally. And so there's that human aspect, which is death and leaving the body can be and is many times a painful experience, physiologically going through that, especially with a terminal illness. But then the liberation that happens once the form is dropped for a soul that has done spiritual work is profound. And that's what was happening on that night. So for me, it was a very profound experience, and for my family and for her family, and obviously the loss of losing a daughter you can't ever really get over that. That's on a physical human level. I mean, it's full on. It's so huge, and losing a wife. So there's always that physical side of things, which is the grief, the loss of that person being in that human form. Gone.
Can I ask how did you overcome that grieving? Or not even overcome, like how did you work through that grieving process?
Yeah. So for me, there was my own spiritual practice and my own devotion. So for me, knowing from my own experience that I am a soul beyond this body already enabled me to understand that death is not the end. And the way we demarcate this life with birth and death, these are just sort of little flagposts on our journey. So already I had a very tangible experience of that through my own spiritual practice, which already altered my perception around it. Otherwise, I could have been, how unfair is this? I've lost, and so I didn't add that emotional burden or, poison to the wound. Then I was very fortunate to have, a very supportive community and the grace of my teacher who was giving me, sort of spiritual knowledge, but not just knowledge, transmission and that, capacity and the strength to go through it. And what we experienced was we thought the miracle would be a physical miracle, physical healing, miraculous healing. But the miracle was the miracle of the soul healing, because Jo really processed. When she was diagnosed, she really reflected on what she'd done in previous lives, and just really kind of healed a lot of wounds and healed things, and just left this earth in a way, peaceful space, and us enabling her, even on the last day we had friends come over and we were just chanting by her bedside. It was also just, it was all just like one big puja. Puja means ceremony or offering of love. The whole death experience was like a ceremony where we just kept enabling her soul, and I knew from my experience and from my spiritual understanding that, the worst thing you can do for a soul is to just kind of grasp and hold on to it. I was just trying to bless her, to just move and to free her to go on her journey, and as she was going on that journey, because of our deep bond and love, I was feeling her experiences were being transmitted to me. So that's where the bliss aspect came through. And I think I might have shared this with you before, maybe around the time, but like any time I'd sort of start to wallow in that sorrow or self-pity or any of that thing, she'd appear, I'd hear her voice inside of me saying, "Don't look for me in sadness, you won't find me there. I'm love, I'm bliss." So I kept on being lifted and elevated. And of course I had my times of just lying on the floor and crying and releasing. And I went on my pilgrimage, taking her ashes to Varanasi, the holy city in India, and spreading her ashes in the Ganga, and joined by beautiful friends who supported me. And I took some of the ashes to our ashram in India, and had the grace of our teacher helping me on the journey. And other friends took the ashes to Bali, and we sprinkled a bit of Bondi, so all her kind of favorite important places. But coming back to that night and what you said, is my understanding is that love is not the exclusion of any emotion. It's not love versus hate or love versus grief. Love is the totality, the embodiment of every emotion. And when we compartmentalize one emotion, love and devotion, love which, devotion is love, it frees us. It frees us to experience everything simultaneously. And we have a habit in this human mind and in our society to be very polarized. But love is not a polarizing thing. It's an embrace of everything. And spirituality is not a polarizing thing. It's actually, how do you sit in a paradox? How do you sit in two opposing truths and say, yeah, they're both true? And that's what love is too. The grief's there, the loss is there, the sorrow's there, the joy's there. All these things, these are fleeting emotions. But unconditional love is an embrace of everything. And probably what you experienced is, you experienced the human loss of a friend, of a beautiful person in our community. But you experienced the soul love and the bliss, which is always there.
Yes,
And
surrender is such a, it's been the most powerful practice in my journey. And it's interesting that I discovered it through chanting, because prior to coming to chanting, I remember there was I fell in love for the first time. and it was with a woman who I'd never see again, and she introduced me to a lot of, I guess, emo music, which was, heavy metal, death metal, and I was in my, early 20s, 21.
Yeah.
I was listening to all this dark music, and I was having those feelings of like self-loathing and, victimization and things like that. And then I arrived in Australia with, this body which was completely hollow. It was like an empty shell. That's how I felt like, when I was walking on the streets, that I was just the Walking Dead, basically. And I remember I met another woman who introduced me to chanting. And I'd done chanting as part of my culture, but religiously rather than, through devotion. And I remember coming to chanting and listening to Western people chant mantras from my culture, and I was sort of insulted. I was like, they're not pronouncing the words correctly, and but something was there that intrigued me, and I couldn't point my finger at it back then. But looking back at it, it was just that they were singing with so much love. And when I was sitting in the room, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, I was judging people.
Yeah.
And I kept coming back every Sunday to this chant ceremony, and I remember I'd always sit at the back, and instead of chanting, I'd be crying because I couldn't get myself to chant. And after about 6 months, I started chanting, and the tears stopped, and I was basically screaming on the top of my lungs with complete surrender, because, in my mind, I was sitting on the floor for 2 hours straight, repeating something completely meaningless. And over time, what I realized, that the mind could not find a reason for what I was doing, and it would step aside, and the body would simply say how it felt. Whether my emotional state didn't matter. If I was chanting with grief, if I was chanting with joy, none of it mattered as long as I was doing it.
Yeah.
And so every emotion had the opportunity to express.
Yeah.
And that, to me, was the beginning of understanding of what surrender meant.
Yeah.
And when the mind completely let go of the process, I felt pure joy.
Yeah.
Because my mind had stepped out of the way. The mind had surrendered to allow the heart to speak.
Yeah.
And that, to me, was surrender.
Yeah, nice. So we can listen to music that, like the emo music, you said it was dark. The sounds can make our cells literally contract, feel fragmented, feel angry. We can listen to songs that make us feel nostalgic. We can listen to music that makes us want to dance. We can listen to music that makes us feel happy, sad. And a lot of art is about the repetition and reenactment of our sorrow, our grief, like a heartbreak song. Okay, I feel heartbroken, I'm just going to keep listening to that. Same with grief. Is repeating the same emotion going to release you from it? No.
Yeah.
So there comes a point where you have to feel something, feel it fully, and then move on. And mantra is different in that sense. Mantra means tool of the soul, or through the soul, through the heart. And these mantras are universal tools for liberation, because, like you said, you had that visceral experience. You chanted the mantra took you into your heart space, sort of deactivated your judgmental process or your rational process, and took you to maybe a higher space, or just the heart space, which is the ultimate intelligence in my view.
Yeah.
And you were able to just be present. Very simple. The mantra takes us into the presence, into the present moment, and in that presence there's bliss. There's nothing else in the present moment.
Yeah.
And it's just a very simple tool and technique. But like you said, we have to be brave enough to throw everything at the chance like a fire. Throw it out. You feel angry? Throw the anger in. You feel frustrated? You feel your legs are sore? You feel hurt? It's a tool and a vessel to empower us to release everything.
You know, it's such a big one in today's world that without a foundation,
Yes.
people are building structures, but then they don't have a foundation, so that collapses and they go around looking for something else and looking for something else. And ultimately, they keep looping in, you know, different ideologies or concepts or religious structures. But as you say, the moment you focus your attention, I think this was a quote that Paulo Coelho once said, is if you want to light fire, you have to focus the light onto one point, and that ignites the fire.
Yes.
And I see devotion chanting as a fire. You have this fire lit, but if you pick out a piece of coal and put it outside the fire, it extinguishes. So you have all these people coming together, so you put the coal back and it ignites the fire, it ignites love.
Yes.
And that's how you keep the flame going. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, and then I'd love to experience this for myself as well.
Yes, for sure. So it is like a fire, and when our flame, you know, our heart flame, our soul flame is just small, it's easily blown out by the wind, right? So our practice is to make it a raging fire that nothing can blow it out. Mantra is a way of, in a way, shielding ourselves from that noise so that we can listen again to the beauty and the peace within us and the peace that resides deep inside of all the noise. And it's also a way of, like, we charge our phones, we need to charge our bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's so much in that in itself. Like, I work with all sorts of psychological constructs and the scaffolding of, you know, people's past experiences, keeping a person re-experiencing that experience over and over again.
Yeah.
But with mantra, you don't need to know any of that.
No, it's not an intellectual process in that way.
You go straight to the source, and the overwhelming sense of love basically transmutes all of that.
Yeah.
So you don't need to understand your psychological archetype, or you don't need to understand, you know, what past experiences you've had or what trauma, tragedy.
No, you don't have to re-traumatize yourself. And,
none of it. It's like a direct line to the source. I would love to now journey with you into that state and experience what it feels like, and to actually overcome some of my own roadblocks around singing, because I know that people have told me, you know, it sometimes hurts sometimes that people say, you're tone deaf or you can't sing. And I don't want to sing to impress people. I want to sing to share my heart.
Yeah,
and I've really been unable to do that because I've always, you know, had the feedback that that is wrong. So I'd love for you to take me on a journey to overcome that.
Oh, it's no pressure. Namaste stu Mahamaye Sripite Surapujite Shankha Chakra Gadaste Mahalakshmi Namostute Namaste Garudarude Kola Surabhayankari Sarva Dukkare Devi Mahalakshmi Namostute. So with Kirtan, we're taking these traditional mantras and the divine names, and we're just repeating them. Kirtan means to repeat, and it's done as a call and response practice, so the energy can build, and all the different things that we're saying, like Jagadambe Ma, the mother of the universe, Jai Jai Ma, victory to that mother, victory to that divine energy, Durga, who's strength, Lakshmi, who's abundance, Saraswati, who's wisdom. We're enumerating all the qualities that are within us so that we can connect with those qualities.
I don't know if you can see me shaking a little bit, but I'm nervous. Yeah.
Can you hear the difference between the notes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can hear. They're all different notes, right? If you were tone deaf, potentially you wouldn't hear the difference between these notes, right? They all sound the same to you.
Yeah.
But you can hear that is a different note to that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I guess I was never able to express it with my voice. So
that's the hardest bit. Like a lot of people might be able to hear the melody, na 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 na, like out in their head, but then actually being able to sing it to match that tone that they're hearing, the tone they're creating. Yeah. If you think about it, it's a muscle, right? It's your voice, vocal cords are just muscles that need to be trained how to move in which position for that note to resonate at that tone. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, if you think about your movement stuff, if you ask somebody to move the way you move your body, who's kind of not very flexible or hasn't done much movement stuff, you might do something that they can see what you're doing, but if they were trying to copy it, it would seem pretty hard for them. Yeah, yeah. So it's the same with those muscles and training the ear to hear and then replicate. It's one thing to hear it, but it's another thing the practice of being able to replicate what you're hearing. Good luck.
Thank you so much, Edo, for
Yeah,
this
thank you.
incredible episode. And I'd love for you to share a little bit more about what a Sound Life charity is.
Yeah.
And about this incredible place we are at.
Yeah, sure. So, A Sound Life is Australia's first charity to bring music, yoga, and meditation as a free service to people in need. So we bring it to people in hospitals, kids in hospitals, aged care facilities, people in palliative care, people in women in refuge, youth at risk, into mental health facilities, basically people in need who can benefit from these tools. So our thing's about equal access. We want everybody to have the tools for empowerment and resilience and to be able to face whatever adversity they're facing, pain relief, improved mental health, all the benefits that music, yoga, and meditation can bring. So that's what A Sound Life does. We have amazing volunteers who go through our training and then they share our programs.
I see. And how do people find out about, do you have a website?
Yeah, you can just go to soundlife.org and watch the video and see what we do and join an info session if you want to volunteer, if you're a musician, yogi, or meditation teacher, or just want to get involved and share your skills. There's always other ways to contribute. So yeah, so that's The Sound Life. And where we've been filming today is called the Bodyglow Farm Sanctuary, which was inspired by my beautiful wife Emily, where we basically rescue and farm animals who would otherwise have been slaughtered or left to die. So they needed to be rehomed.
Yeah.
These are kind of like male calves from the dairy industry who are surplus to requirements, so the farmers will just kill them, so they're happy to give them away, or sheep that have been abandoned. And basically these animals, we either home them here, so we've had them since they were babies, and look after them, and just they can have a free life, just enjoying life and with no expectations made of them other than just to live out their natural lives. And then we've rehomed other animals that we've rescued, so we also adopt and rehome. But it's just basically a place for compassionate living. Like our three aspects are the devotion, which we've talked about, service, so service to humanity, and love for all creations. And one of our other projects is we're building or creating a food forest to create organic produce for people in need.
Yeah, wow.
So yeah,
So incredible, Edo.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.